this rather snappy, won't you? I have some very heavy thinking to do before 10 o'clock.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Get It Right Texoma with the trio. I'm Mike Hendren. This is Terry McAdams. That's Trey over there. We're glad to have you here. We get together to entertain and inform you. That's hard to say early in the day. And we also hope to enlighten you as well. And it has been a really, really interesting few days here as we record this. Most of us got rained on
over the weekend.
Oh yeah,
over the weekend.
How many total? What have we had since the weekend?
I don't know.
A lot. I think the area average is going to be around six inches on average overall. I know we had close to 6 where I live. I know a couple of people said they had 7+. So.
Oh, wow.
It's
cool.
It's pretty good.
We needed it.
We
good for Texoma and the whole area.
It absolutely is. But thank you for joining us. Be sure to visit our website, by the way, GetItRightTexoma.com.
Also, today is Election Day.
Yes.
It is.
Obviously, we're not going to talk about it because you won't hear this until it's over. And we have a great special guest today.
Yes.
We do have a very special guest today. Glenn Barham is a former Wichita Falls mayor.
And
a retired Wichita Falls police officer. He currently serves, I believe, as the chairman or the executive director, or he'll tell us.
Yes, we'll find out.
It's the Sheppard Public Affairs
Military Affairs
Committee.
Yeah.
We'll let him explain all that when he gets here. But well, needless to say, Glenn's been a very busy guy, very busy the last 45 years or so. So anyway, Glenn will talk to us about that when he gets here a little later in the program. So we'll get right into it. We've got S'mores and Pours coming up featuring the killer dueling pianos, which, by the way, if you've never seen these dueling piano guys do their thing.
Pretty interesting.
Woo! On fire.
The killer dueling pianos.
Killer dueling pianos. Now, I don't know if I've seen this one specifically, but I've seen a couple of different duos do this dueling piano thing. It's really cool to watch. This is going to be at the Sykes Lake Event Center, 6 to 10 p.m. on the 16th. You get the tickets at Campfire USA office.
This Campfire North Texas is putting this event on. This event happened a few years ago, pre-COVID, then went on hiatus. I know when I was on the board, we were planning to revitalize this event, and they've done it, and I think it's great. And it's kind of a neat. I don't know what the whole concept before the concept was. S'mores and Pours. It was a bar that had beer, and then they also had s'mores. I don't really know all the details on this, but they are going to have the killer dueling piano thing, which is going to be great, and the s'mores. Campfire is, of course, known for s'mores. So for more information, I think you can get it on the website, campfireNTX.org.
You know, I can see where an ice cold Shiner Bock might pair well with a s'more. I can see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, nice dark beer with a nice sweet s'more.
So go check it out.
That's right. Then on the 25th, something that's kind of near and dear to me because I'm on their executive committee. The Fantasy of Lights is going to open at 6 p.m. on the 25th. Now, for those of you that may be watching this that aren't familiar with this, that maybe you don't live around here, this is a truly local event. It started local 80-plus years ago with the Burns family.
Wow.
It started with one decoration.
Yes.
With the Burns family. The Burns family was a local family that started out with very humble beginnings and then built an empire, an oil empire in the local area.
Yes, they did.
And
so back in the 1970s, after the Burns family, the elders, Mr. and Mrs. L.T. Burns, had passed away, all of the exhibits kind of went into storage down in Archer City, Texas.
Yeah, they were actually donated to Archer City. This is exhibits that were Christmas exhibits that that the Burns family would put out on their lawn. They had a rather large yard, so they would put out on their lawn every year, and the public was invited to go and see these displays. So some of these displays that are still being used today date back from the 40s and 50s. Yeah, and they require lots of maintenance and stuff. But the whole thing was dedicated or donated to the city of Archer City, which is a community that's probably, 20 miles from here, 25 miles from here, and a lot of the workers that work for the Burns family lived in Archer City. I think that was the reasoning. That's what I've heard.
Right.
Is the reasoning that they wanted to donate to the city of Archer City. Of course, the city of Archer City looks and goes, "What the hell are we going to do with this?" Because Archer City, if you're not familiar, the word city is a little of a misnomer.
Yeah,
it's
more
an Archer community.
More of a hamlet.
Yeah, exactly. So anyhow, they didn't know what to do, so it sat in storage, and then a committee was formed.
Well, around 1973 or so, 74, Bobby Burns, the son of Mr. and Mrs. L.T. Burns, died very unexpectedly. We'll just say that. And the city of Archer City approached, or someone there approached Midwestern State University and said, "Hey, would you guys like to have this stuff?" Well, MSU in and of itself could not legally spend money to put these displays out there.
Right.
They couldn't pay for it. So a nonprofit committee was formed to raise money, and in December of 1974, the first MSU-Burns Fantasy of Lights opened on the campus of Midwestern State University. It all is lined up on the campus grounds along Taft Boulevard. You can drive through and look at the exhibits, what you can see from the drive there. But you can also get out and walk this stuff. And there's thousands of lights. Several of the buildings are draped with lights. You've got all these exhibits. I've lost count of how many there are, but I want to say it's 50 or 51 exhibits.
51 exhibits.
And now we're up to 20,000 plus lights. And as Trey had mentioned, some of these exhibits go back to the 1940s. The oldest one may actually go back to around 39 or 40. And I think that may be the robot that blows the bubbles. I think that may be the one. It's one of the oldest ones.
You could tell by looking at some of them that some of them are rather old. Not that they're in disrepair, but it's just the design of them. And especially the Night Before Christmas one, which is a pretty elaborate exhibit considering the age of it.
Yes.
But you could just tell by the way it's designed. That
yes.
That it's an
Well, there were a lot of technologies that we would use today to create to create the images, to create the characters and so forth that didn't exist 70 or 80 years ago. Right. So you've got a lot of stuff there, but some of these exhibits are very old. It is 100% run by private donations. Midwestern State University, exactly.
Collecting money. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, my wife and I will stand out there, 3 or 4 nights out of this year, and help collect money. We have volunteers that step up just about every night to stand out there and help collect money for this. We also have donation boxes on the campus, various places throughout the exhibits where you can make a donation. You can go to fol.msutexas.edu, and you can see the site, you can see the exhibits, and you can make a donation online there as well.
Go check it out. It's really a staple. Now, it's opening a little earlier. I don't know that it's earlier than normal, but usually it opens real close to Thanksgiving, but it actually opens before Thanksgiving this year.
Well, we usually try to open the Monday prior to Thanksgiving.
Right.
So that way the exhibits are there. Everything's operational, in place, running and going. And we have we have 200,000 plus people every year that show up to see this. Yeah. It really is. November 25th, 6 p.m., there'll be food trucks, food vendors. Several of the high school choirs will perform. The mayor will give some opening remarks.
It's a big event.
It really is an event. The first, 30 minutes of this thing on the 25th is going to be a lot of,
pomp and circumstance.
Yes. So I would get there by 5:30. And you can get something to eat, get something to drink, and kind of enjoy the pre-opening events. And then the lights go on at 6 o'clock, and we're off and running. That's on the 25th.
Do you want to do our local restaurant focus, and then we can get to our guests?
Let's do that. Yeah. So each program we try to focus on a local area, family-owned, locally owned restaurant. This program, listen to me. This program, Sevy's Burritos is our focus.
They've been around a long time. I don't know how many years they've been in business, but
I don't know either.
I've heard of Sevy's Burritos. I mean, I've eaten at Sevy's Burritos, I believe, since high school.
I'm pretty sure we have. Sevy's is one of those legendary brands around here. Yeah, it's a burrito shop. They do, I guess, mostly breakfast burritos, and I don't know anybody that doesn't like them. I mean,
they're big.
They're huge.
It's more than a meal.
Yeah.
You get your money's worth out of it.
Yeah.
Big time get your money's worth out of it.
Thumbs up from the audience here.
That's right.
But Sevy's Burritos, what is They're located on...
they're on 9th Street.
I try to think of I know they're on 9th Street.
1710. Oh, they're at the corner of
9th and Brook.
9th and Brook.
9th and Brook, yeah. So... really easy to find.
Not right on the corner.
No, but they're in that shopping center. Right.
They're across from the Walgreens.
There you go.
Yeah.
Across 9th Street from the Walgreens.
That's right. Yeah. So if you can find a Walgreens, you can find Sevy's.
It's tight parking, too, because they're so busy. But anyway.
They are. They are very busy. My advice is get there early and, bring a $20 bill and you'll...
you can call in, tell your order in and pick it up.
That's
as
it.
well.
Yeah.
That's kind of the hot setup to me is call the order in. That way you can go by and pick it up. It'd be nice and fresh for you.
Big burrito, bottle of Coke.
Yeah.
It's on, baby.
And it's actually Severiana? Is that?
Severiana Sevy's Burritos.
Yes. Is
that the Facebook page?
Yes, that's the Facebook page.
But I don't know how long they've been around, but it's been a long time.
At least since I've been since 95 and before. I'm
going to say they've had to have been here at least 35 years and probably near 45.
In the 80s. Yeah, at least in the 80s. But
probably near 45.
Great local restaurant, good food, good service, good people. Go check them out.
All right. We're going to take a break here for just a moment, and when we come back, Glenn Barham is going to be our guest. He'll join us here on Get It Right Texoma. Back in a moment. Hey, welcome back to Get It Right Texoma with the trio, Mike, Terry, and Trey. And our very special guest, as we promised, is Glenn Barham. Glenn has served with Wichita Falls Police Department, served on the city council as both at-large council member, mayor for 6.5 years. Yes. And then you went on to join the Sheppard Military Affairs Committee. Am I saying it right?
That's correct.
Yeah, or
SMAC Daddy.
Yeah.
SMAC Daddy, yeah.
Glenn, how are you?
I'm good, Mike. Good to see you, Terry.
Yeah, good to have you. Good to have you here. Now, you're a local guy, right? I mean, you
grew up here. We moved here when I was very young, so I'm 18 months old when we moved here. So I was Wichita Falls was my home.
Yeah.
And went off to college back in 1969 and got tired of being away from Wichita Falls, came back, went to Midwestern, and went to work for the police department in 1972 as a dispatcher, and then also went ahead and enrolled out at Midwestern in criminal justice. And it took me 4 more years to get that degree because I decided I wanted to be a police officer. Went through the academy in 1974, graduated on Memorial Day in May of 74.
Wow.
And 30 years later plus, 2005, June of 2005, I retired and did nothing for 2 years. Just sat around the house, did a lot of work around the house outside, things that we needed to get done that just never got done. And a lot of folks at the Fire Association started pestering me about running for city council, wanting me to run for council. And I said, no, my plan is to wait about 5 years. 2 years is too soon. Well, they'd ask, why is that? I did not want the perception that I had an axe to grind. And a lot of times when a retired or former city employee turns around and runs for city council, he's got an axe to grind. And I did not want that perception, so I wanted to wait about 5 years. But Fire Association talked me into running, and if nothing else, it gave me a little bit of experience as far as what you have to do in the election process. And I filed for the at-large position on the city council the last day to file. And in May, when the election was held, there was 3 of us in the race, so you had to have a majority vote now, not plurality. Nobody had a majority, so there was a runoff between me and another gentleman, and a month later I won the runoff election by 20 votes. Wow. So I'm here to tell you that voting at the local level and the county level and somewhat to the state level really matters.
I've been screaming about that on this program, that everybody wants to focus on the presidential election, but you're never going to talk to the president because there's a good chance you'll never talk to a U.S. senator. A very limited number of people will talk to a U.S. congressman. But the good news is you could talk to a school board member, a city councilor, the mayor, the county commissioners, county judge, and even state representatives at some degree. You have a lot more influence on that local election, and it influences your life more than what happens in the White House.
That's absolutely true, and sometimes that talking's a little bit too much, but that's okay. That's why you run. And
well, your local elected officials, these are the people you're going to run into at the grocery store. These are the people you're going to sit next to in church or at some concert event or something like that. These are the people you're going to rub elbows with regularly in the public sphere.
Absolutely.
So you're going to see them. You're going to, even if you don't know them personally, you're going to see them, and you're probably going to recognize them. It would be hard not to recognize you, Glenn. You've been around here doing things. You've been active in this community for so long.
Well, after what Channel 3 did to me last night on the 4B board meeting yesterday when they zoomed in and full screen face shot of me,
and you serve on the 4B board, right?
Yes.
As well. So
I'm on the 4B board now. And when I ran for mayor, after 3 years as the at-large, there were three of us in that race, and I won that election by 57% on the first ballot.
Wow.
So that told me that what I had done as the at-large counselor, everybody was pleased with, especially the business community, because they were totally opposed to my running for council when I ran for the at-large seat. And the Police and Fire Association, they're the ones that got me elected to the counselor at-large position. But over the 3 years that I served in that position, I feel like that my work on the council as the at-large changed some minds in the business community, and they supported me when I ran for mayor.
Yeah. Now, when you ran for mayor, and you 6.5 years as mayor, I guess basically term limits is why you
term limited out.
You got term limited out. But during that time, what would you say were 2 or 3 of the most challenging things that you faced as mayor?
Number one, the drought.
Yeah.
That drought started in 2011, as we all know, and ended in 2015 in May when we had 17 inches of rain.
Yep.
But the big issue during that time frame, of course, was how are we going to soldier through this? The restrictions were becoming a little bit draconian towards the end. Of course, we started the project to pipe our wastewater from the wastewater treatment facility back over to the Cypress water treatment plant and blended that water, ran it through microfiltration, reverse osmosis, stored it in a holding tank for about 30 days, then blended it with the lake water coming in and ran it through the conventional treatment process. So that wastewater got 4 different treatment cycles.
It's about as clean as you're going to get.
Well, and it was something that hadn't ever been done the way that y'all did it, right?
Not to the extent that we did it. No, it had not in this country.
The technology existed, but we were one on the
but in most cases, what a community would do is they would pipe that water out to a reservoir,
just like we do now.
We do now. It would be blended with the lake water. It would just become part of the lake, and then it all becomes one. But this was the first time anyone had attempted this, and I got to tell you, and I know I've heard all the jokes and everything about it. But you know what? It was a brilliant idea.
And it saved us.
It saved us.
Literally saved us.
It saved businesses. It saved the community. And it was a brilliant idea. Looking back at it now, it's like that was a stroke of genius to do that.
Well, because part of the problem is, but you don't lose water as much through usage as you do through evaporation.
That's correct.
So if you go put that stuff right back in the lake out there, the sun is going to take most of it.
Well,
a large portion of it.
We lose more water to evaporation.
Yeah, that's correct.
Than we do consumption.
That's correct.
That's what I'm saying.
There's nothing you can do about that. I mean, it is what nature is nature, man.
We tried several different things. We tried there's a powder or something that we could put down on the surface of Lake Airhead. We tried that. It was limited success, but not enough. Not success to the extent that it would have done what the reverse osmosis system did for the wastewater.
Yeah. We could have gotten a big piece of saran wrap and just put it right over the top of the lake there.
And with our luck, with our luck, it would fray and tear just as you got to the end of it. You know,
exactly. Yeah.
No, but it really was. It was a genius idea. Now that water, that pipeline was relocated goes now directly to Lake Arrowhead. Yes. I've heard and read we dump somewhere around 6 or 7 million gallons a day.
It's more than that. It's probably closer to 10 or 15 million gallons a
really?
day. But keep in mind also that if we're not in a drought like we are now, they don't pump that water back to Lake Arrowhead.
Right. Yeah. It's one of those.
We survive on the water that we get naturally. There's no reason for us to return the wastewater. Because what you're doing, you return it to the lake. We have rains, and what you return to the lake goes over the spillway and goes to the Red River, and then downstream to Lake Texoma and all those metroplex cities. Yeah. So the city doesn't pump it back unless we're in low water situations like we are now. So it is 100% of it's going back to Lake Arrowhead today.
Yeah.
And that has slowed down the process. In the drought from 2011 to 15, we would lose 1% of water every 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Today it takes a week to maybe 10 days before you drop 1% on that lake level. So pumping that water back has made a big difference, and it's a project that we had planned to do all along following the drought. Now, if I had my druthers, I'd say we've got this thing in place. Let's bury that pipeline. Let's keep the reverse osmosis and the wastewater treatment going. But it's very expensive to treat that water, especially through the RO process. It takes a lot of electricity, and electrical costs would offset any good that you might have.
Is there are you on the water board?
I chair the Water Resource Commission as well,
okay.
yes.
Which, by the way, I want to give you props here. I think you did a great job. Was it 2 or 3 months ago in speaking to the city council about dropping the water restrictions?
Right.
That had once again kind of become a little bit on the draconian side. It didn't make a lot of sense based on the current environment.
Yeah.
And so I think I appreciate you going in and
Thank you.
Trying to speak a little bit of hey, we all have to be concerned, but we can't freak out about every time we worry about water, and we have to use logic, because it's like any kind of government thing, and you dealt with this as mayor. Yes, you have to run the city or run a portion of the city or something from a governmental standpoint, but you do have citizens that have rights and that sort of thing. You have to balance those two things.
You do, and that particular situation was just a misunderstanding on 2 councilors' parts.
Right.
Plus, they were down a couple of members that day, and that vote required 4 councilors voting in favor of doing whatever the proposal was. They had 5 members there. The vote was 3-2 to stop it, but because of what our city charter says, it takes 4 votes.
Had to have the 4.
Yeah.
So, and it was just a misunderstanding on 2 councilors' parts. They were further educated up until the next council meeting, and of course there were several of us that went to that meeting to explain the situation as well, and that was a majority vote. Second time around.
You've obviously had some input and some ears and eyes on this Lake Ringgold project, something that's been on the drawing board for 65, 70 years now.
I've got a copy at home of a newspaper article from May of 1956. It's the first article I could find where Lake Ringgold was mentioned.
Wow.
May of 1956.
Almost 70 years ago.
Yeah. So the big controversy when Arrowhead was built, do we build Arrowhead, do we build Ringgold? And they decided to build Arrowhead. And it was a good decision to make at the time.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, who knows?
Yeah.
Lake Ringgold, the state of Texas is divided into 5 water districts, huge districts. And Lake Ringgold is the last viable reservoir site in the district in which we reside.
Right.
There's no other place in the district that you could build a reservoir.
Yeah.
There would be a viable option. So it's the last place. It needs to be built. Are we going to need the water in 30 years? Who knows? I think we will. I think there's things coming to Wichita Falls in the near future, and maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years out. I think you're going to see this city start exploding in growth.
Well, I think when you look at the migration of America, I mean, we have thousands of people every day relocating here from the West Coast, literally, and to Texas. Most of them are going to the Dallas-Fort Worth area,
not to here,
or the Austin area, San Antonio area. But at some point, particularly the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that growth is going to have to start moving north and west.
And it has been moving north. Yeah, I mean, you look at Prosper and Little Elm and those places that are right north.
You look what's happening even in Decatur right now. Look what's happening there. That growth is going to start really pushing. It's going to have to because they're running out of space for it.
Well, and Mike Campbell mentioned when we had him on as a guest that there was a tract of land that was purchased and has been divided it up, and they've sold or most of the lots.
A huge amount of lots.
So that's
in South Lake County.
Yeah, I'm a little bit perplexed about some folks, and I get it. The folks that own that property, they don't want to give up their property for a reservoir. I fully understand that. But what I'm perplexed about is the citizens that don't really have a stake in that, other than that they're going to get a reservoir out their back door. The tax revenue that's going to generate for Clay County is tremendous, because the city's, as I understand it, there's no plans for the city to hang on to that property surrounding the lake like they did out at Arrowhead and lease it. They're going to sell it. There's going to be homes there. There's going to be businesses on that lake. And all of that's going to generate tax revenue for Clay County, not Wichita Falls, Clay County. And, and Clay County is more a rural county than Wichita County is. We're technically a rural county, but Clay County is especially a rural county.
It's about more than 2.5 times the size of Wichita County, and it's about 12,000 people.
Yeah, and it's just going to explode when that lake's built. Yeah, and property values are going to go up, tax revenues will go up. It's a win-win, and the water is going to be needed. Trust me, I firmly believe that.
But if we don't do it, I think that could be an impediment, because the larger businesses, are going to look at the capacity of Wichita Falls in the future or the area.
I don't know. There's a lot of back and forth on that. And Russell Schreiber's going to be on with us. Actually next week.
Well,
talk a little bit about that. So
all this stuff we're talking about does have a tie back into SMAC.
Yeah, let's talk to SMAC.
Absolutely.
Right now, yeah.
I was just fixing to bring up that during the drought, when I was the mayor, Sheppard was making contingency plans, and they had plans in place to move missions out of Sheppard, to move them to other installations. Now, we all know, the four of us sitting here, if you move a mission, the chances of it coming back are slim and none. And so we fought tooth and nail. Thank goodness to the local folks in this community that provided water so Sheppard's swimming pool could stay open. A local benefactor provided water on a daily basis so that pool could stay open for those kids and airmen there at Sheppard. Water was provided to Castaway Cove, for that matter. But Sheppard was very close to pulling the trigger on moving missions. And May 2015 came around and saved us.
Yeah, everything changed.
It ended with a record flood. And
so tell everybody, what is SMAC?
Okay, SMAC is the Sheppard Military Affairs Committee. It was established in 2006 following the base realignment and closure round in 2005.
So SMAC followed BRAC.
Yeah, better known as BRAC. In the 2005 BRAC, Sheppard lost all of the medical training. That Sheppard was the place that Army medics, Marine Corps medics, Navy medics, Air Force medics all came to Sheppard to learn how to do their jobs. Mm-hmm. And when the BRAC round occurred, Sheppard lost that training, and it was moved to Fort Sam Houston down at San Antonio. Mm-hmm. Now, people wonder why we lost it. If you go back and look at the scoring documents that were established during that BRAC round, Sheppard was number one on the list to keep that training here, based on the scoring. But I never have been able to find out what political move was done, but it was a political move that moved it to San Antonio.
But wasn't the BRAC Commission supposed to be outside the political world. That's why they had an objective list of criteria that they looked at. And
absolutely.
Well,
and so that's when. So the community came together following that sorry circumstance and established the Sheppard Military Affairs Committee. And the purpose of Sheppard, the stated mission, is to protect the future of Sheppard Air Force Base. And we've done that very well since 2006. Sheppard has gained some missions following the BRAC loss. Not as big. One of probably the most prominent is the non-commissioned officer academy that they host. It's the largest one in the Air Force. There's 2 of them, and this one is the largest. They graduate a class every 6 months, so they have 2 graduations a year. Ordnance disposal training, basic training.
Explosive ordnance,
military folks learn how to do that. The basic training is now done at Sheppard. That's a very physically intense, what do they call it in the Air Force job titles? The
AFSC.
Yeah.
That's and a little story on that. I entered the Air Force in 1984 to go into EOD. And although it was a tough school, I went through 5.5 months of training, and fortunately or unfortunately, I guess depending on your perspective, I washed out, ended up going into avionics. But in this case, it was a tough school.
It's a very tough school. A lot of injuries. Sheppard has partnered with Midwestern State University's kinesiology program. Their injury rate dropped from about 80% of their students down to about 10% once the kinesiology folks got involved and do what they do.
Yeah,
and,
a lot of it's prevention.
So those are the 2 biggest missions that Sheppard picked up. Of course, the NJET program, we all know about the jets flying around.
They're Euro
NATO Joint Jet
Pilot Training.
NJET for short.
And I want to point out something. They get all, honestly, in my opinion, since I've been here since 1995 as an Air Force member, and then, of course, retiring and then going to the civilian community, is that unfortunately the pilots get all the glory.
Yes, they do.
And they don't graduate nearly. It's a fraction of the number of tech training graduates out of Sheppard Air Force Base. And I love the pilots. I mean, we got to have them, but you also have to have those maintainers, and that's a significant.
Exactly.
In fact, almost all aircraft maintenance training is done here. Avionics, jet engines, most all of that, I believe, is here. And I was in avionics and the 365th. Hoorah. But anyway.
Yeah, I think most people don't realize just how large Sheppard is in terms of its missions and the economic impact. What is the economic impact in the community?
I'm glad you asked that, so they have it right. These are the 2022 numbers. These numbers were compiled from a study that SMAC and the Chamber commissioned.
Okay.
A firm out of Austin did the study for us about 1.5 years ago now. Okay. And in 2022, the Wichita County GDP or gross domestic product, was $6.7 billion. Sheppard Air Force Base's contribution to that was $2.3 billion, or 34.4%. Now, we think that number is higher because when the study was done, we put a timeline on it. We needed to get it done because we had some issues going on and we needed the numbers. So they didn't get all the data they really wanted. We think it's probably closer to 37, 38%, maybe even 40% of our economy. Wow. So if Sheppard goes away, 34, based on the study, 34.4% of our economy is gone overnight.
Well, and I think that drives home the point that we need to do more to, for lack of a better way to put it, diversify our economy here. We need to bring in more things to supplement what we already have. Having Sheppard be that big a part of our economy, that's great. But as you said, if that goes away for any reason,
all your eggs in one basket.
You put all your eggs in one basket. If somebody breaks the eggs, you got a problem.
And it can go away for a decision that's not made anywhere locally or by anybody that's from here that can do anything here. So you're right. But the good news is we do have the SMAC committee that is. The mission is to try to keep Sheppard here and develop those community relationships.
SMAC can get political when those folks out at Sheppard cannot. You know, that general out there, and he is a general now, he was pinned last week, he can't go to a congressman and say, I need you to do this for me. But I can.
But he's here 2 years.
And he's here 2 years, correct?
Or she, yeah.
He or she's here for 2 years, and then we get a new one. So they can't go to the politicians and say, Sheppard needs this, this, and this. But Glenn Barham can, and the members of the SMAC committee can go. Members of the chamber can go. SMAC is more or less the political side of what we do to support Sheppard. The chamber has taken on the quality of life side, finding jobs for spouses, child care, and so on and so forth. Right. So we do what the folks out at Sheppard can't do. So if they need something and they communicate that to us, then we can work behind the scenes with Congressman Jackson, Senators Cornyn and Cruz, and other congressional people within the state and even southern Oklahoma to help and support Sheppard.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's good that you mentioned that because southern Oklahoma is tied into Sheppard as well.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. Frederick, Oklahoma, their municipal airport is utilized by the NJET program on a daily basis when the T-6s are doing touch and goes. They use the Frederick Airport to do that instead of tying up the airspace here around Sheppard Air Force Base. They fly up to Frederick, do their training, do their touch and goes. Sheppard even sends controllers up there when they're flying and using that airport. So Frederick is on our committee. A couple of representatives from Frederick sits on our committee. We have influence with Congressman Cole and into the state legislature. So, as I said, we can get political when the folks out at Sheppard can't.
And speaking of political, I understand that is it the city or is it a combination of the city and the chamber that have hired a lobbyist in Washington specifically for us?
It's SMAC and the chamber.
SMAC and the chamber, okay.
Did that. The 4A and 4B board are paying for that.
Okay.
Now, we're a 501c3, and as such, we cannot lobby for political candidates. We can lobby for positions or for issues, but we can only spend up to 20% of our operating budget on that lobbying. Okay. So if my operating budget is $150,000 a year, then I can only spend $30,000 on lobbying. Gotcha. So to keep me from going over that, the 4A and 4B boards picked up that expense. It's in the city's framework, it's $12,000 a month. That's pocket change when you have a $190 million budget.
Right.
But the 4A and 4B boards pick that up, and then the chamber and SMAC shares the recurring expenses that might occur. For instance, when we go to D.C., if we have to take folks out to dinner, or we can spend money on lobbying efforts as long as we keep it below 20% of our operating budget.
Okay.
We talk about taking somebody out to dinner is expensive in D.C.
Yeah, I bet.
You could drop $100 at McDonald's there.
Before we wrap up here, real quick, I want to touch real quick on the economic development funds, 4A and 4B. Now, 4A funds are used to attract industry to us. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you use that money, you spend that money to try to bring new industry in. The 4B money you have a little more flexibility with, right?
4B money can be used for the same thing that 4A money can be used, but in addition, they can pay for quality of life projects. Right. Of course, the biggest one and probably one of the most controversial things that ever happened in around here with 4B money is Castaway Cove. The debt service on Castaway Cove is being paid by the 4B board. So any funds that Castaway Cove generates, any net funds, goes right back into that park. So that they don't have debt service. So they're able to operate. That facility has never gone in the red since it was bought by the city and went into operation. 100% because they don't have any debt service. The debt service is all paid by the 4B board, with the exception of any attractions that they've put in. Right. That's part of the money that comes in, the net revenues that they make. That money is set aside for future additions and improvements at Castaway Cove.
So basically, aside from the salaries that you pay to the people that work there, and there's not that many, we're not talking millions and millions of dollars in salaries. We're talking probably in the thousands, right?
Probably, yeah. I don't know how many employees they run during the summer. During the off season, there's only 2. Yeah. And so they're seasonal employees. But
otherwise, everything goes right back into the operational cost of having it there.
That's correct. So that's the 4B board's paying for that. Probably one of the most recent projects. 4B voted on it just yesterday. The eyesore hotel at the waterfall is coming down, folks. It'll be down hopefully by the end of January.
Glenn, I'm telling you, let's implode that thing and sell tickets. I'll bring the popcorn.
Yeah,
you know, this will be some quality entertainment. This will really.
Yeah. It'll be good to see that come.
I tried to get him to implode it. I told him I wanted to push the button.
With those big old red buttons.
It is an eyesore, and it's a shame that that's the first impression a lot of people have coming from the north of Wichita Falls as they enter the heart of the city.
Well, and also see the Salt Falls. You've got the falls, and you got the shitty hotel that's right across the river from it.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
That facility, it's going to be a conventional demolition project. The company out of Fort Worth had the low bid, and as we speak, City Council's meeting this morning, and they're voting on approving that project and approving the contract with the low bidder. The low bidder tells the city that they need 30 days to ramp up. Once they get that 30, bring in supplies and equipment, so forth. Once they get that equipment in and they start work, they think it'll take them 30 to maybe 45 days to take it down and clean that lot off.
It's amazing because the difference between 2024 and 1944, because in 1944 they would have just bulldozed it right into the river. Now they'll haul it all off. Yeah.
There's a project out at Sheppard, Child Development Center. It's the old brig out at Sheppard where it sits now. It used to be the jail at Sheppard, and they were number one on the Child Development Center list in the Air Force for a number of years. And when Ronnie Jackson was elected to Congress, he stepped up to the plate and wrote letters and did his political thing. And the next National Defense Authorization Act had the money in it to build that Child Development Center. It has been sitting dead in its track, dead in the water now for almost 18 months because when they started the dirt work, they found asbestos in the dirt. Where that Child Development Center is going, there used to be a barracks there. And when it was demolished, what'd they do? They buried it on site.
Yep.
And so they found that asbestos. It's been an issue politically getting the money to abate that asbestos. It's in the 25 National Defense Authorization Act. So if Congress can ever get their act together when they get back after today's election, then
literally get their act together, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And then get that NDAA passed, then the money will be there to mitigate that asbestos, and they can go to work on that Child Development Center. But the big question is now, how much has those costs gone up?
It's
just been for 18 months.
Well, it's like any other project. The longer you sit there and wait on it, the more the price of everything just keeps going up. It never gets cheaper to do it.
So that's the big project coming up out at Sheppard. And one of the next things you're going to see, they'll be letting a contract out there soon to demolish the old hospital.
Okay.
And they'll take it to the ground.
Wow.
The old pyramid.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the plan, once they take that down,
That's
is to move the fence line in so that property is available for – there's a program in the federal government called Defense Community Installation Projects. The Air Force or any military installation for that matter can lease land that they own back to private developers. So the Air Force, in this case Sheppard, would generate a revenue from leasing that land. Whatever can be built there, hotels, theaters.
Miniature golf.
Miniature golf.
I think a miniature golf course would be great right there, right next to military Sheppard. A lot of those airmen that can't go across town, they can go right there and play mini golf.
I think one of the plans, I don't know if that's in the list or not, but there's been talk about maybe building a hotel or motel there for use by folks that come to Sheppard to visit.
Yeah.
Come to Sheppard TDY.
Right.
They have facilities on base, but a lot of times they're overcrowded, and they have to go off to civilian side anyway.
Right, so. and then in that case, you require a whole lot of legislation to get it built.
We'll see what happens with that.
As we're winding down here, tell everybody how they can get involved in SMAC.
Yeah.
Well, we do a fundraising drive every 3 years, our financial campaign drive, and the budget or the goal of that campaign drive is to raise $300,000 pledged over 3 years, so $100,000 a year. We'll be conducting that drive again next year. Next year is the last year of it. So towards the middle of the year, information will go out where folks can make pledges to support us. Short of that, if you want to make a donation to the Sheppard Military Affairs Committee, we operate solely on donations and local government support. The 4A Board, Iowa Parks Development Center, Burke Burnett's development folks, and Wichita County all contribute money, plus the money that we raised in the financial campaign is our operating monies. Right. And we stay pretty flush. We don't make a profit, but we're certainly not losing money either.
But you can go to the website, and it looks like the donation button and become a partner button.
Yes.
So if you want to get more involved, you can either at least donate, or you can actively.
Are you always looking for volunteers, or covered right now?
About the only time we really need volunteers is when we do 2 annual banquets. We do a banquet for the NJET steering committee when they're here in the spring. 14 member nations in that NJET program, and they send their representatives to Sheppard Air Force Base, usually in March. We do a banquet in honor of those folks, and then we do an annual banquet in October for the entire installation, where we bring in the senior leaders, usually from captain on up. We invite them to a big dinner. We bring in a noted speaker, typically. This year our speakers bailed on us, and thank goodness for, at the time, Colonel Filchek. He said, yeah, I'll be your speaker. Did a fantastic job, and he opened a lot of eyes as to what's going on in the Air Force and what's going on in the world today. Yeah. So that banquet we do every year, and community, sometimes we open that up to everybody. If we get a big name speaker, we invited the Secretary of the Air Force to be the speaker this year, and he declined about 3 months out.
Wow, that's quick. That's quick when you're doing a big event.
Yeah, and then my next choice was the Air Education Training Command, 3-star general. He declined 10 days out, and so I was scrambling.
Wow.
And so I was able to get General Filchek to be our guest speaker, and frankly, he's probably one of the best speakers we've had in the years I've been involved.
That's great.
And
That's great.
So we'll try to get a big name speaker, and if it's somebody that's really big, and we get confirmed they're coming, that's probably a situation where I might open it up to the public.
Yeah. Okay.
Let the public come in, and so we need volunteers when we do those 2 events. Not a whole lot.
Okay.
Usually 8 or 9.
So financial volunteers are the big thing right now.
Yeah, financial volunteers.
What's the website?
It is smacntx.org, smacntx.org.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right. Glenn Barham, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it very much, and thank you for your years of service to this community and your continued service through SMAC. It's good to have people like yourself that have such a dedication to the community, to the area, to see things succeed here.
Thank you, Mike. It's been my pleasure. Terry, Trey.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Guys, we're going to take a little break here. We'll come right back and wrap it up on Get It Right Texoma. Stay tuned. All right, guys, welcome back to Get It Right Texoma. We're going to wrap things up here real quick. We want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank Glenn Barham for being our guest today. And be sure to visit our website, getitrighttexoma.com, the website. You can find us on Facebook. Be sure to like and share our page. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on the YouTube page as well, please.
Doesn't cost you a penny.
No, nothing. Cost you nothing. Maybe some grief. I don't know. Depends on your view of us. Anyway, if you would hit the subscribe button on the YouTube page, and be sure to share this with all your friends, family, neighbors, co-workers, people you love, people you hate, especially people you hate, and annoys the hell out of them when you do that. So anyway, thank you for being with us. We really, truly appreciate it.
And we will, since we don't know, this is election day, we won't know who the winner is, obviously, this early in the morning especially, but we will be certainly talking about it.
I hope the winner is the American public.
Amen, brother. Amen. So that's probably what we'll be talking about heavily on the next episode of Get It Right Texoma. Until then, y'all take care. We shall see you down the road.